BIP stands for Business is Personal. And you're with Thomas and Penny Power. And Business is Personal is something that's very important to us. It's been our philosophy all the way through, really becoming an entrepreneur. But we also see this philosophy spreading into larger companies. The reason is that we're all very aware of the fact that our emotional needs and our mental needs and our own personal needs do affect our performance. And when we can create a community where basically anything goes, because we create a great feeling of safety and confidentiality, we support amazing people on their journey and they support each other, which is the critical thing. So when we do our BIP Chat, we're interviewing experts that have joined BIP 100 who have amazing skills and expertise in their business, but also have the most phenomenal values of contribution and kindness towards one another. And they become a citizen of this community. And as you know, if you know Thomas and I, citizenship and contribution, these values are very important to us. And today we're interviewing our BIP 100 member, as we call them BIPers, Ben Mekie. And Ben is the owner of Acuity Associates, and he's got with him his colleague, Robert Fisher. And we absolutely adore what Ben does. And we want you to keep listening in, because if you're a founder of a business, it is very important to you that you understand the finance and the skills of the financial people around you. And what Ben has created is quite phenomenal. And he's going to share with you a lot of amazing data and very interesting facts around the importance of your financial director or your CFO, but also how Acuity Associates has created an amazing tool for you to be able to assess and evaluate, so that you can either recruit the right person or you can maybe up the skills of the people that you have. So this is going to be really phenomenal for you today if you're a founder of a business. Now, I just want to add to this. I know through 24 years of supporting entrepreneurs and founders, many of them are great ideas people. Many of them are hugely creative. Many of them don't really have the insights to their finance that they need to create a sustainable business. Often for them, it's not a very exciting aspect of their business, but it is actually the foundation and the bedrock of whether a business is going to continue and become the asset that you want and deliver the income that you seek. So I think this is going to be a really powerful session with both Ben and Rob. And so welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today over the next 45 minutes. Thomas has joined us, obviously, and I tend to be the person that introduces. You'll hear a lot from Thomas because he is the question master in my life. I never get away without sharing anything. And this is going to be a great show with all the ways that we're going to really dig into this subject. So first of all, Ben, I've done a little bit to represent you and why we're so proud to know you. Can you just fill in some of those gaps and share a little bit more about yourself and building Acuity Associates?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much indeed for this opportunity to speak with you. It's great. Well, there's a why and there's a how. And the why Acuity Associates exists is frankly that I used to be the buyer of services, and I simply couldn't. It's the oldest cliche in the book. I simply couldn't find a business that provided services to me in the way that I wanted them. And I'm talking about the recruitment of accountants into a business, finance directors, whatever. The context of that was a business that I was the fifth person in, but not the founder. And very long story short, we grew it from 5 people to 13,000 in 6 years, and then we listed it for 100 million. I looked after finance, and I was consistently bemused at the response of recruitment companies to my question, can your candidates do the job? And they didn't know. They'd say, oh, they've got an accounting qualification. So we've now proven through data that extensive data that having an accounting qualification there's no correlation with being a capable finance director or CFO or indeed financial controller.
Wow, which is incredibly worrying.
The problem in the market is that everyone assumes that it is. And that's why, and even more scary is that finance directors don't really charge differently. If you're an FD, you're an FD, so you're getting paid the market rate, and the founders, CEOs out there, and I used to be one of them, don't know whether I've got a good one. So our data shows that 85% of finance directors and CFOs out there, and we've assessed over 1,000 of the 25,000 in the UK, give or take, are not fit for purpose.
85% are not fit for purpose.
And I'm gonna be deliberately annoying here, because I know we could be getting deeply into the detail here, and I know because I can watch Thomas's body language and the way he's getting very excited about this. I would really love you to introduce Rob into this conversation now. What's really interesting is he is your finance director, so I cannot imagine the rigor that he went through to prove that he is as capable as he needs to be.
Well, that's not any old pink shirt there, Rob.
It's fantastic. Fantastic to meet you, Rob. So Ben, can you introduce Rob a little bit more as well?
Absolutely. So a little bit of context. When we first started assessing finance directors and CFOs, the exam was 3.5 hours. We've managed to get it down to 2 hours now, without disturbing the integrity of the benchmark, which is absolutely crucial. So quite frankly, Rob is in the top 15%. Okay, so every time we assess someone, and we can talk later about what skills we're assessing, you get a percentile. You know, where does that person sit on the capability curve? It's a normal distribution. And we only, of course, look at those in the top, well, officially it's the top quartile, but then out of the top quartile, only 10%, further 10% are knocked out because we don't believe their fit is right. So Rob is not only, you know, in the top quartile in terms of his technical skills, he's also made the cut with regards to being a human being. So Rob has helped us across all sorts of areas, readying businesses for sale. So Rob, over to you. Tell us a little bit about your experience working for Acuity's clients.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. So I've been working with Acuity for around 2 years now, and worked on a number of different assignments for a number of different clients in different situations. Some of them have been very much in a high growth curve, you know, well underway on their business journey. Others have been perhaps, you know, in a bit more of a crisis situation where they need funding, where they need remedial restructuring advice and support. Other businesses have been towards the end of their growth journey, really, and they're you know, wanting to sell the business, prep the business for sale. So I've come in, you know, and helped them get the business ready for sale, take it to market, and really help them manage the financial element of the due diligence and the sale process with the appropriate corporate finance company. So really an interesting mix of kind of situations I found myself in working with Acuity, and an interesting mix of clients, really. And it's one of the things that attracts me to working as a fractional FD, is that really varied mix of clients and kind of you know, business situations you find yourself in, and the ability to add value, really, in a number of different situations, add value and help the client, genuinely support the client on you know, the obstacles and the objectives they're wishing to achieve.
And Rob, can I ask, how does it make you feel to know that you're in that top 15%?
Quite privileged, really, in some respects, to have, you know, found Ben and be working with Ben and Acuity, but also I guess confident in my own sort of capabilities and competence, and being able to add the value that I've just talked about, you know, competent and confident going into a company and meeting, you know, directors and owners of a business, and being able to talk with confidence about where I feel the improvement should be made and where the focus should be in the short, medium and long term.
Yeah,
so Ben is really giving you identity and kudos, isn't he? Absolutely. So it's been a great partnership, you know, from my side, and helping Ben's, you know, and Acuity grow over the last, you know, couple of years. Sorry to interrupt you, babes.
No, you're not. You're not. What I'm curious about is you talked about a wide range of services there. So Ben, I might come back to you here as the founder of Acuity. So obviously your absolute focus, founders, financial competency, but there's a wide range in the way that you're helping companies. Can you help us to sort of put those in different boxes so that we understand your business?
Yes. Any business that has an objective to grow will need to pass through inflection points, whereby their business becomes increasingly sophisticated and greases the wheels of growth. So any startup will start up inevitably as a project-based organization where we notice something needs to happen, so it gets fixed, and there's a series of projects, and then we get to a certain point where we can't really grow the business anymore on that basis. So we need to move through the inflection point to turn the business into a process-based organization. So everybody knows what they're doing, as opposed to madly running around doing projects and, all hands on deck, as they used to say. So that process of going through the inflection point is something the finance director is crucial in. There usually isn't the skill sets of an individual in a business to do that. And it means settling everything down so that everybody knows what they're doing, when they're doing it, and how they're doing it. Okay, so there's no kind of gaps in people's knowledge and they sit there stumped about how do I do this? No.
Does that take away the dependency on the founder by doing that?
100%. Yeah. My definition of success for a founder is your business growing without you? And there's no way that that's going to happen without having the full set of systems and processes, and of course the right people with the right skills in the right seats. So, but the right people with the right skills in the right seats still need to have the rule book. Now, it doesn't need to be 100% accurate. You still want people to be able to act with their intelligence and experience, but you need to give them the framework. And the rule of thumb is that if you give someone 20% of the process that they do every time, the other 80% will be open to their capabilities to work within, but to achieve the same end. But you need that 20%. And it doesn't take that long to do, actually, but it needs to be done. And businesses that pull in processes, even at this sort of low level, but actually it's the best level because it really forces people to think about what we're trying to achieve and crystallizing the steps to do that without, nobody likes dancing in chains. Okay, so you give them the framework and then let them operate within that. And
so
this
sounds like you provide the recruitment to help people find CFOs and FDs, and you've got this tool that wider people can use. They don't have to be asking you to recruit, but they can use this themselves. It sounds like you're also offering sort of consulting versus almost a coaching program as well for people. Is that how your business is working?
The FD in a best-in-class situation will be running the business, between now and 3 months out, and the founder will be looking 3 months out and further. CEO, founder. So it's not coaching; it's doing. I mean, in an emerging mid-market business, the finance director not only needs to be able to talk strategically to the board, to any investors, to the budget holders, to administrators, about the strategic direction of the business. They also need to be able to go in and create a process or a system that helps the individuals to participate and make their activities congruent with the overall organization's goals. It's very much, in an emerging mid-market business, this is a hands-on role. Going out into sales, into operations, into marketing, asking questions like, do you have the resources you need to achieve your targets? Not, I'm saying no, but what are the right level of resources that you need to make the business meet its goals? And by the way, I'll help you set those goals.
So Ben, when you're assessing your FDs in your FD CFO recruitment assessment test, you talk about a process and a system. Are you assessing them in their ability to create a process and create a system as well?
Yeah.
Isn't that very hard to assess in someone's ability, because they might have the technical skills but not the communication skills?
Okay. There are 5 key skills which enable 3 behaviours. Okay. So the 5 key skills are scorer, custodian, business partner, catalyst, and strategist. I've written a white paper on this, which is on our website. It's called the 5 DFD. So the 5 dimensions, skill dimensions of a finance director or CFO. Okay. When those skills are prevalent, all 5 of them, because most people have got some here and some there. No, you need people who are all-rounders across, and that's why it's hard to find these guys, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have these 5 skills, you can do 3 things which allow you to be truly effective in a business. And being effective is what it's all about, making the thing grow. So first of all, you are able to identify what data or information, same thing, needs to be inspected in order to help us make better business decisions. So what KPIs, what analysis, what forecasts,
Makes sense.
Okay, so we need to be skilled enough for a particular business at a particular time in its growth curve, because everyone's at a different point. So for a particular time, what is the data we should be looking at now to help us get to the next level? And then that needs to be reviewed every 6 months, or more frequently or less frequently, depending on what you're doing. So 1, we have the skills to understand what is the right data to be looking at to help decision making. 2, this sounds incredibly obvious. You have to get the numbers right. No point looking at the right data if the numbers are wrong, because you'll still be making bad decisions based off bad data. So you need to be able to understand what data to look at, get the numbers right. And to speak to what you just said, Thomas, the third, and absolutely as important as the other 2, is that you need to be able to communicate the message to the intended audience in a way that resonates with them. Okay, so whether you're talking to the founder, whether you're talking to a budget holder, an administrator, an investor, a bank, you need to be able to couch what you're saying, couch the message in a way that makes sense to them. Because guess what? The CEO thinks very differently about life and the business than an administrator. So you need to understand how your interlocutor thinks so you can present the data to them in a way that will actually affect change. And that is what makes effective in a business.
Amazing.
And Robert, I should say, have you got these 5 Ds and these 3 behavior changes types in terms of data, numbers, and resonating with the audience? Because incredibly hard to assess data, yes, numbers being right, yes, but assessing people's ability to resonate with the audience they're communicating with about data and numbers, that's really difficult. How have you got those skills, or how have you been measured to have those skills?
To answer your first question, how have I got those skills? Really by developing them over a long career in finance and working my way up from quite a junior role and becoming qualified and working with numerous business owners and stakeholders over the years and holding down several senior roles, ranging up to a group FD role for 100 million plus turnover business. So they're soft skills that you can only develop over time. How I've been assessed really is numerous meetings with Ben and his team following the Acuity method, where they do the soft probing kind of type of testing rather than the technical competence testing, which is included in the Acuity method tests.
If I can add something, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. It's just, how many people would you say you've got like Robert in your...
Well, we've assessed over 1,000. I lose count. It's probably 1,100 by now, because we assess between 30 and 100 FD CFOs a month. So 150 we know of that are actually...
So Rob, you're part of a small group.
very much.
150 people.
Mm. And
Sorry, Ben,
some
you
of
were going to
those,
add something.
Yeah, so there's two ways you can communicate with people. One is face-to-face, using verbal communication, and the other is by presenting data it used to be on paper, but now it's in digital format. So in the Acuity method, we give them some data, and we ask them to present it in a way, and we tell them who the audience is. And then we look and see how they present that data during the tests. And we've got our idea of what a model pie chart would look like to that audience. And we see how many of the characteristics in our model answer that the candidate actually produces, because it needs to be quickly and easily digestible to the person that's looking at the information. Otherwise, they'll just look and go, oh, that's too hard, and they'll move on. And there'll be the assumption that people have understood, but they haven't, and that's the most dangerous thing of all. So there are ways of testing people's visual acuity by asking them to present data in different ways to different people, and that will tell us whether if they can do it in an exam, they can do it, in work.
Can I take this to a upper level? If it's, and just do almost like a role play to understand this journey. So say I'm a founder now listening to this show, and I've grown it to a certain extent with my own capabilities, but I'm listening and I'm thinking, wow, actually this would be really powerful. Can you take me on a sort of a journey from when they contact you to what would they experience going through that journey with you?
Well, we've developed some tools to help introduce what the new paradigm for them will look like, which are on our website. So we've got two tools, in particular the FIDE tool, which is an acronym which stands for Financial Infrastructure Diagnostic. But we just say FIDE because it's a little easier to say. And it's on our website, and a founder looks at 20 statements and says whether they agree, disagree, strongly, otherwise neutral, number 1 to 5. After 5 minutes, you'll have a score, and obviously the website adds it up for you. And then you're put through to the FIBER tool. And the FIBER tool is the Financial Infrastructure Benchmark Report. So within 5 minutes of starting, you will know where your financial infrastructure sits against both of your competitors and best-in-class companies in your sector, the ones that are really, really doing well. So that's the first tool we have, and it's completely free. So that starts to allow a founder to think about the business in a slightly different way and start to appreciate that data or information can be used not just to see how well the past went, but to use the past, analyze it, and look forward and make sure the future is better with it. So that's two tools. And then we have other tools. We have a FIRE tool, which is the Financial Infrastructure Report Extract. And that is a kind of get the drains up exercise whereby we list what financial infrastructure, and by financial infrastructure, I mean your information. So what your KPIs, any analysis, your board reports, any forecasts, any margin analysis, all the things, good stuff that you need to understand in order to be able to really get to grips with the nuts and bolts of your business. So the FIRE tool has 3 sections. Firstly, the state of the nation, what the founder's business has. Nothing right, nothing wrong. It's just simply a statement of fact of what they have. The second section, which a lot of people are interested in seeing, is the definitive list of financial infrastructure to achieve 2 things. 1, to run the business as efficiently and productively as it can be now. And also that set of financial infrastructure and information is the same as what is required to be presented to a due diligence team if you're trying to sell the business or bring in a strategic investor like private equity or venture capital. So you know where you are, you know where you'd like to be at some point. And then the third section lists out the things that you can do quickly and easily from today, tomorrow, to actually start moving yourself from where you are to a best-in-class set of financial infrastructure. and it's prioritized. So the things that are going to give the most value first are done first. And then it can be planned out over several months or years.
So these 3 questionnaires are kind of like an audit of the company before you send in someone like Robert or another one of the 150 that have made the grade.
Yeah, you need to know, people are scared. They go, oh, a finance director, that sounds really expensive. And, I can't afford 1,000, whatever it is. So you start them with just 4 days. 4 days to produce the report, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. And you can keep that report and it will go away. But the report is the plan. Identifying what things will create the quickest value immediately, which you should get a return on, and then build on that.
So
you
can
manage how you build your infrastructure over, if you don't want to sell for 5 years, you can build this up over 5 years. Don't need a full-time person. If you're selling at Christmas, you'll need 2 of my guys 5 days a week, but you don't have to do that. You can build it up slowly over time in a way that's affordable and achieves the same end.
It's a great way. It's a discovery in consulting terms. It's like doing a big discovery project, which is incredible. I think we've got about 15 minutes left. And first of all, I want to make sure that anybody who's listening to this can find that tool if you're listening to this. So if you go to www, of course, Acuity Associates. So Acuity is ACUITY associates.co.uk. And then do a /FID. So that takes you to this free tool that takes you on a journey of assessment, which is very powerful. And of course, if anybody is interested in or missed anything in that information, you can look up Ben Mekie. So his name on LinkedIn, Ben, I don't need to spell that, Mekie, Mekie, on LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'd enjoy connecting with you. Also, we're talking to Rob Fisher that works with Ben, and Rob is actually, I think it's Robert Fisher, aren't you, on LinkedIn? If you want to contact Rob as well, and of course you can connect with Thomas and I, and we'll put you in touch if that's all a lot of information while you're walking your dog. If I just over the next few minutes, it's quite interesting to take this into more of an industry conversation here. Because I think it's quite fascinating what's happening at the moment. It's something that I'm observing in the market is that the technology sector has gone through a huge growth curve in shareholder value. And I'm hearing rumbles of major redundancies happening, big changes happening them. And it seems to be that there's this big drive now to profit over shareholder value. And have I heard right? Have I made the right assumptions about that? Are you seeing a shift in the way people are coming to you and what are their priorities?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a fantastic observation on the market. There are corners of tech which are still as yet unexplored. And the most valuable acquisitions, if you're interested in building enterprise value, which most of us are when a larger business takes you on or buys you for strategic reasons. Okay, so that's when you get the silly numbers, the higher numbers, because instead of a big corporate going out and doing something from scratch, it's much easier for them just to go out and find someone that's doing it and buy them. Much easier, and then assimilate them into the business. So yes, there is a drive in areas which are as well trodden. It's about profit. But if you've managed to find a way of doing something better, more quickly, more efficiently, more productively, then you can still get these strategic valuations, which are in a tech environment usually a multiple of revenue as opposed to EBITDA. Which is why
these are all the disruptors or the market makers that are more reliant on the shareholder value.
Yeah, I mean, if you can save a big corporate $1 billion with what you're doing, you're probably worth $1 billion.
Yeah.
So,
And are you finding the people approaching you? And I know we're being generalists here, of course, because I mean, anybody listening here will be able to see far left and far right of this conversation. But are you seeing people still really seeking exits, or are people starting to realize they want to build a business that produces great income going forward for them?
yeah, the majority are looking for an exit. There's a whole host of family-run businesses which are in the second or third generation, and that seems to be a trigger point, that the first and the second generations get it to a certain point, and then with the greatest respect to them, the business is getting too big for their capability and their skill sets. So at that point, they look to bring in a professional team. That they're advised by almost everyone to bring in an FD or CFO first, okay, because then they can manage the rest of the growth. And then once that professional team is in, CEO, COO, CFO, etc., then they can decide. They can decide whether to move to Palma or Bermuda and just let the income roll in, or do they want to crystallize the value through a liquidity event, a sale, and then do something else? And that will depend on their personal circumstances, their age, their aspirations for life. So I see everything going on, but it tends to be people tend to do one exit, and then they're financially secure, and then after that they may be more inclined to build businesses to be retained, and they build up a kind of family office portfolio of businesses that provide them with an infrastructure, and potentially they bring in their kids to start to get involved in things like that. So it's all happening, but the majority of events businesses are moving towards a liquidity event.
Interesting. Thomas, I don't really want to just add anything in here. I wanted to come to Rob. I don't know whether you've got something you wanted to say.
No, that was a good answer from Ben. It was a good question and a good answer. Yeah, I want to hear I'm interested to hear what question you asked Robert, because...
Well, what I'm curious about is I love processes and systems. I absolutely love them. I'm very people oriented, but I'm very driven also by creating safe processes. That means that we don't let anyone down, and that we can efficiently service our clients. And what sounds wonderful about what Acuity and Ben have created is a model that the people that come onto Ben's books as an interim or a fractional FD can follow. And we see that in business coaching world, where people create models for business coaching. I'd just love to know from your point of view what difference that's made for you to have sort of a model that you can apply when you're going into a client.
I mean, it's provided a fantastic set of tools, really, and a framework to go in and diagnose either issues or opportunities in a business, list them out, and as Ben's gone through, those three sections, what the business has, what potential issues there are within what the business currently has, where the opportunities lie for improvement, what's required to run the business now, and then what potentially would be required to get the business ready for sale, and then finally, provide a roadmap for instigating and implementing those solutions, or addressing the opportunities, and it provides tremendous transparency for the client, and the accountability for the interim working there for the client, and milestones that can be achieved and ticked off, so everybody knows where everybody is and everybody's comfortable with the work streams that are happening and the timescales that they're happening in. So I think working as a fractional FD or an interim FD, it's a tremendous set of tools and templates really to utilize going into sort of almost any client in a multiple different kind of scenarios, as I touched on earlier.
And having that Acuity Associates brand behind you then must really give some credibility to that, even though you're obviously very credible in your own right. Sorry, Thomas.
I was going to say, a good answer, Rob. If you've got people listening as they're walking their dog or wherever they're driving, on Spotify or whatever in the car. If you've got business owners or founders who are considering exit or a liquidity event, as Ben describes, but they're not quite sure about their FD or CFO having the skills for that, how do they start that conversation with either you or Ben? Because they want the event, but they're unsure about the person on their team, because they might not be in the top 15% quartile in the assessment. How do they begin a conversation like that if they're listening right now and they're smiling as they're hearing me say this?
I mean, I'll certainly start a response on that, Thomas. So, I mean, really just pick up the phone or drop myself or Ben an email, and I think, you know, put their current incumbent through a test, an Acuity test, and see how they score. That would be my response. I mean, Ben, I don't know if you'd like to elaborate on that.
That's a good answer. Yeah, that's a good answer.
We do that quite a lot, where we have a founder come up and saying, but it's not positioned in a sort of fail this and you're fired. Absolutely not. The reality is that this individual has got the business, the finance individual has got the business to the point where it's profitable. And, you know, there's huge credit in that. There's no shame in not having taken a business through a sale before. So under those circumstances, we would put in a fractional or project finance director / CFO to support the finance team. And it's an awful lot of work. If you don't have a lot of the financial infrastructure which needs to be inspected and reviewed during a due diligence process, creating it can be highly disruptive. And the worst thing in the world you can do as a founder is take the eye off the ball at exactly the point where you need to be growing. Because if you don't grow, the person that's buying goes, well, you've just had a little wobble in your EBITDA there, haven't you? So instead of X, I'm going to offer you a number less than X. So the idea is that the associates finance directors come in and work in conjunction with the incumbent team to produce all of the things that need to be done so that the team that's done such a great job doing their business as usual can continue to do that. Because it's a lot of work to prepare this stuff and handle the queries from the buyer's team.
Oh, that's such a good question, Thomas. I love that answer.
Well, I'm just thinking a lot of those family businesses might have a family member as a finance controller and FD, and you're the CEO and I'm the FD, and I'm a family member, partner, husband, spouse, brother, sister, and thinking you want to prep for exit and I don't have the skills. It's going to be very delicate, isn't it, managing that sensitivity of all that.
So we present it as a supporting, you know, we're here to help. We're not here to make you look bad.
Not threatening. It's not at all threatening, is it? No. So we've just got about 5 minutes left. Ben, I'm really curious about sort of the partnerships and the collaboration and the way that you, Ben, go into the market to help people to see this. And I know that you do public speaking. You've been asked by many business networks and conferences to speak. I don't know whether you can give a little bit of an idea of what your type of keynote covers. Is that possible? Because I think that's really interesting for anybody that's listening that's associated with business networks. Yeah,
well, thank you. Yes, I mean, when you speak publicly, you know, the last thing people want to think is, you're just trying to sell me an FD. So what I try and do is educate the audience, insofar as I can, to understand the things that they may not have considered before and how they can help their business. And that the FIDE and the fiber tools, and I don't know how many times I've done online seminars or, you know, standing up in front of a room where everyone's got the FIDE tools printed out and they go through their numbers and then they look at their score, and then we put up the fiber tool on the board and everyone's looking to see which band they're in. And so it's really about trying to get people thinking about their businesses in a way that they haven't before. I mean, no founder can know everything. The only reason I know what I know is because I was lucky enough to be involved in the business with an unbelievably talented founder who took me under their wing. So I did the finance stuff and they did everything else. And I sat opposite them for 6 years and watched the magic happen. So not everyone can have that level of ability, but if you know your market and you know your product or your service unbelievably well, you're already there. You just need to bolt on the skill sets to help you really maximize enterprise value. So I try and tease out of the audience the fact that actually they can do better, and in a way that will surprise them. You know,
Lovely.
changing the paradigm of accounts being a cost center, which is a bit annoying to do the VAT returns, to moving across to a paradigm whereby finance is the heartbeat of the company, providing information and resources to all the different parts of the business, like blood pouring through a body, and enabling those different parts of the business to be truly effective because they are properly resourced.
Yeah, I love that.
Changing that mindset is what I try and do.
That's really good.
That's
Really good.
So just, and it's possibly the last question I can ask, I don't know whether, Thomas, you've got another one up your sleeve, but is that, you know, something Thomas, well, he's just a master networker. He's a master connector of people. And he often teaches people how to actually be more effective at that. And a lot of it is about, well, he calls it being open, random, and supportive, ORS, in your behavior. But also it's about having this peripheral vision that enables you to see who you can partner with. And when you said, you know, no founder can know everything, it immediately made me think about no business coach can know everything. You know, and I know of a couple of business coaches that are interested in talking with you within BIP 100 who, because they would want to work with you so that if they're coaching a company, and is that something you're seeing grow where a business coach will come to you and say, we would like your support to in this client?
Oh, that's a good route to market for you, isn't it, Ben?
Absolutely, yes, it is, There's already a trusted relationship between the coach and the founder, you presume, because otherwise they wouldn't be working together. And so, you know, sometimes it takes someone else to tell you what you kind of know, but have been resisting because you're not feeling brave enough, or you don't understand the process well enough to do it on your own. You know, it's lonely at the top. And you know, you sometimes just need a little bit of a gentle nudge from someone you trust to make you take that step, which we hope will lead to accelerated growth.
Well, it's a big added value, I always think, when you take other people into your clients and connect them with the skills that somebody needs. It's a paranoid person that doesn't do that. So first of all, I want to really thank Ben and Robert Fisher. Online you'll find him as Ben Mekie, Mekie, for a really interesting subject. Finance is something that probably didn't interest me for quite a long time as a founder, but I've become, over the last sort of 10, 12 years, more and more interested in the subject. So I've absolutely loved this. You've learned, you know, we started at the top of the show saying if you're a founder of a business, but also, you know, we've explained here that if you're running a network, if you've got colleagues, if you've got friends, a dinner party on a Saturday, and if you're a business coach, you know, this is a really relevant show to share with other people and get in touch with Ben. And it's been a real privilege to have this time with you both. It really has been. And it's always, Thomas and I feel that, well, what is it that Ronald Warpera said to us? Thomas?
Attention is the product.
Attention is the product. That was one of our members from the Academy over in Holland said us. The world, he said this about 20 years ago, the world is going to realize that attention is the product. And to have had your attention as a listener for this time, we never take it for granted. And please do get in touch with Thomas or myself if you want us to connect with Ben or Robert, or indeed find them on LinkedIn. And finally, just to remind you, the website for starting this journey, if this has really inspired you, is www.acuity, which is a C, ACUITY associates.co.uk/FID. And thank you very much, everybody. And I hope that through this show, we make a lot more businesses last a lot longer.
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you, Ben.